Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so pumped to have you with us today because honestly, we're looking at a massive systemic shift that is completely reshaping our world right now. We're not just looking at a typical business cycle anymore. The global economy is literally undergoing one of the fastest, most profound transformations in modern history. And today, we're going to dive into exactly what that means for all of us, looking at the freshest data to map out this entirely new reality together.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Why does everything from our job security to the price of a house to our retirement portfolios feel so incredibly unpredictable lately? Well, it's because the global economy touches every single aspect of our daily lives. We're watching capital move across borders faster than ever, supply chains are totally restructuring, and new tech is basically rewriting the rules of human productivity. So if you want to protect and grow your wealth or just make smart career moves, understanding these macroeconomic shifts is absolutely crucial.
I really love this quote from the IMF's July 2026 update because it hits the nail on the head regarding the tug-of-war happening globally right now. Quote, "The global economy is caught in the cross-currents of war and technology," unquote. On one side, we've got these immense downward pressures like geopolitical conflicts and trade fragmentation just pulling the economy down. But on the flip side, we have explosive upward catalysts, specifically the AI boom, pulling it right back up.
Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, a fundamentally changing economy. 2, will we see a recession? 3, redrawing the trade map. 4, the AI economic supercycle. 5, where capital is moving. And finally, adapting to the new reality. Let's jump in.
Sections 1 and 2, a fundamentally changing economy and will we see a recession?
So, to answer that big question right off the bat, most leading institutions actually don't expect a synchronized global recession anytime soon. Instead, the data points to uneven growth. It's exactly like that tug-of-war we just talked about. We have heavyweights dragging us down, right? The conflict in the Strait of Hormuz, threatening energy supplies, persistent inflation, and elevated government debt. But fighting against all that, we've got these powerful engines pulling us up. We're talking an AI productivity boom, massive investments in infrastructure and nearshoring, and surprisingly resilient growth in emerging markets. So it's not a unified global slowdown, it's a divergence. Some regions are expanding rapidly, while others are just kind of stagnating.
And this perfectly illustrates a major headwind. Notice how gross debt for advanced economies is hovering right around, and often actually exceeding, 100% of their GDP. This is huge. It shows exactly why governments are struggling to manage those downward pressures. When government debt is this staggering, their ability to step in and stimulate economic growth during a crisis is, well, severely limited. They just don't have the financial wiggle room, which means the global economy has to lean heavily on private sector innovation and resilient labor markets to keep moving forward.
But despite all those debt burdens and geopolitical shocks, check out these growth projections. Sure, the IMF notes a moderate slowdown to 3% in 2026, mostly reflecting the effects of conflicts in the Middle East and energy price shocks, but we are definitely not seeing a collapse. Growth is projected to bounce right back to 3.4% in 2027. We are dodging a total global recession thanks entirely to super resilient labor markets and this massive demand-driven momentum in the tech sector.
Moving on to Section 3, redrawing the trade map.
Okay, so globalization used to be super simple. Just produce goods in the absolute cheapest country possible. It was all about cost efficiency. But today, the rules have completely changed. Step 1, tariffs have skyrocketed. The US effective tariff rate recently hit 7.1%, and China is facing 25%. Because of this, we move to Step 2. Companies are now prioritizing risk management over pure cost efficiency. It's no longer about the cheapest country, it is all about the safest country. We call this friendshoring or nearshoring, which brings us to Step 3. Because of this massive shift, huge amounts of infrastructure capital are being permanently redirected to brand new logistics corridors and regional supply nodes.
$226 billion. That is an incredible number. That represents the foreign direct investment inflows into the ASEAN region, Southeast Asia, in a single year. And that's growing significantly while global FDI actually shrank. Geographies like Southeast Asia, India, and Mexico are absolutely winning this infrastructure capital shift. Companies are rebuilding their supply chains for a totally new trade architecture, and the smart money is literally following them right to these new logistical hubs.
Let's look at Section 4, the AI economic supercycle. $580 billion. That is a staggering amount expected to be invested in AI data centers globally by 2025. You see, it's so important to understand that AI isn't just invisible software floating up in the cloud.
It requires massive physical infrastructure. This level of investment is kicking off a physical supercycle in power and electricity demand. Data centers are entirely constrained by grid capacity and energy supply. So this $580 billion isn't just a tech investment. It is a massive downstream demand signal for global electricity and real asset investment.
And the reason for this giant infrastructure spend is the sheer scale of AI's economic application. According to the Penn-Wharton budget model, around 40% of current GDP and labor income is substantially exposed to generative AI. But what's really fascinating here is who is most exposed. It's not blue-collar manufacturing this time around. Occupations right around the 80th percentile of earnings are actually the most exposed to automation and AI assistance. The absolute highest earners are a bit less exposed, and the lowest earning manual labor jobs, they're the least exposed of all.
So what does this all mean in the end? Well, AI is expected to act as a permanent structural floor beneath the global economy. By boosting total factor productivity, which is basically how efficiently we use our labor and tech, AI could permanently lift the level of global GDP by 3.7% by 2075. This is absolutely huge because it directly counteracts those downward demographic headwinds, like aging populations and that massive government debt we looked at earlier. AI is literally the engine pulling the global economy forward right now.
All right, Section 5, where capital is moving.
So the big takeaway here is this. Capital providers are totally ditching those broad, generic macroeconomic bets. They are getting hyper-specific. Global electricity investment is set to hit $1.5 trillion because real assets and power grids are the new institutional mandate. I mean, the money has to go where the AI data centers need power, right? Plus, capital is just flooding into strategic magnets like Brazil and Zambia to secure critical minerals for clean energy and hardware, completely bypassing Chinese supply chains. And even in commercial real estate, despite high interest rates, CBRE forecasts U.S. investment will jump 16% to $562 billion in 2026. But it's highly concentrated in prime, Class A assets, the real premium stuff, and very specific localized growth markets.
It's genuinely wild to see this geographical capital shift playing out in the luxury housing market too. For a solid decade, New York City was the undisputed king of luxury real estate inventory, but check out this structural shift. By late 2025, the Miami Metro officially surpassed New York, boasting over 10,500 active million-dollar listings compared to New York's roughly 9,200. Wealth and luxury inventory are physically migrating. The whole definition of where luxury lives and where wealth actually chooses to base itself in this new economy is rapidly expanding into these emerging, amenity-rich micromarkets.
Finally, Section 6, adapting to the new reality. If you take just one thing away from this explainer today, please let it be this. The global economy is not just hitting a temporary speed bump, it is fundamentally rewriting its own rules. Geopolitical risk is no longer just a scary news headline that tanks the market for a week and then vanishes. No, it is now a permanent pricing variable built into every single supply chain, every infrastructure project, and every investment mandate out there.
Which leaves us with this final question for you to mull over. How are you positioning your own portfolio and your own career for a world caught in the crosscurrents of war and technology? Are you still playing by the economic rules of 2019, or are you actively adapting to these massive structural shifts like nearshoring, AI productivity, and totally new capital flows? The opportunities over this next decade are going to be immense, for sure, but they belong to those who see these trends coming and position themselves for the future. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with us on today's Explainer. Keep adapting, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.